everybody has that show or that movie or shows and movies that resonate with them and stands up through the test of time. And the originality, whether it's supposedly related very much to the comics or not, I do not know how well that is. I've never read the comics. The originality of the show The Walking Dead, and as far as actually the ending of it, and from what it started out as to what it turned into, I very much have mixed feelings, and it in some way kind of reminds me of Lost a little bit in a sense. Not necessarily what took place in the show itself, but just the originality of what started and later the weirdness it turned into, and the fully not satisfied, even though the ending of The Walking Dead was nowhere near as bad as Lost, in my opinion. But it's the only other show personally that I know a large number of people, a large group of people, all tuned into. Like, it was the big talk, not long after its airing or whatever. And it's also, I'm one of the people in that group of that. And it's also one of the very few shows me and my dad, me and my father have actually both enjoyed together. And I've had a couple people every once in a while say, well, The Walking Dead was boring and I lost interest in it. But many people, later on down the line, when the show started getting weird, I very much can understand and verify with myself, they lost interest or just stopped watching because it wasn't what it was. So, when The Walking Dead first came out, I just looked at this as just a zombie film showing just zombies trying to eat people instead of people trying to survive zombies. Kind of like the idea, I forget which person on YouTube I watched. I don't remember whether it was Clayton Fioriti or Dragon Curve or Altiori or somebody else. Because even a co-worker at work mentioned this, the people that's not as big as Godzilla fan as I am, not Godzilla fans at all. There's usually not a caring that much in certain, if not most, Godzilla movies for the human characters. It's kind of like who was it, Kevin Bacon years ago in the original Tremors. He said, "Well, I don't really see us as the main characters and stars, and I see the monster as a star. We're just part of the plot." Kind of in that sense, but later on down the line, and going back and rewatching it for a second time, pretty much, I'm starting to see even more potential it had, even more greatness it had, and the more realization. And also, a lot of the YouTube channels I watch, they deep dive focus into character development, other people that talk about people that love martial arts movies and this and that and how they're done and where they think the storytelling went wrong or where it was good. And it really helped me more try to actually connect with characters and people and stories of movies and TV shows. And I do think TV shows are killing it way better than movies are nowadays. Not in every aspect, not in every area, but just in most of them. And so yes, that's what made it so great. It's not so much the zombies, even though it is called The Walking Dead. I think there is a something that I don't know. Maybe it was up front, maybe it was hidden. I don't completely know. I'm not completely sure. I think it's something that you really have to. You can decide and decipher yourself, and I think it's somewhere in the middle. It was meant to be hidden. It was meant to be up to your own debate. But besides the fact that we already are Walking Dead in the show itself, it shows you the struggle of the human characters trying not to become kind of spiritual, mortal-wise dead inside themselves, and just to constantly be just surviving instead of actually living a real life, actually thriving. They're just the Walking Dead. And then for those of y'all that have not seen the whole entire show or most of it, whatnot, there will be a few little spoilers if you've not seen it. But as long as it's been out, whether you stop watching or not, you should have seen the majority of it by now. So anyway, The Whisperers. Well, long before Rick wasn't around for that, actually. Surprisingly enough, Negan stayed alive, was around for that. But anyway, Rick made a statement one time, we need to become like the Walking Dead. And Daryl told him no. Out of all people, Daryl, as much Daryl is a daggum badass, and much Daryl, if need to, will get the job done if needed. It's still enough humanity. And I think there was a difference in that brotherhood of Daryl and Rick versus originality of Daryl and Shane. Daryl and Rick got arguments. Daryl and Rick have gotten fights. Daryl and Rick still cared for each other and wanted to help each other, even though they disagreed. It's where Rick and Shane just went wrong and broke off at some point. Now, this is why ADHD is a bitch. I got so much I want to say. It's constantly trying to push out of me to say it, and I'm trying to hold everything. Then it goes away what I'm saying, my thoughts. Let's see. Okay, Rick told us he would become the Walking Dead. He never got to see the Whisperers, you know. But instead of people that are just trying to say, okay, we're going to become one just like the monsters so we can defeat the monsters, the need to still hold on to your humanity. And there's sometimes some situations that emotions really do get in the way of stuff. Not the fact that you have emotions, you could be emotional and you have an emotional connection with something, but the overall unintentional obsession to make something feel right just because your emotions say, hey, you should not feel this way about it. You know, this will not feel good, or will not look at this good in a good feeling way if this is done this way. And we all think and we all feel, and we think and feel the same thing sometimes. Sometimes just one thing overpowering other feelings overthinking. And sometimes it can become a fine line, actually. And looking back, look at some other stuff. Now, I question this in general. Looking back and watching some of the originality of it. Was Shane always after Lori to begin with? Because there is that one random scene before any of this happens with the world. He asks, how's you and Lori doing? Now, at the same time, that could be nothing. That could be so simple, him really being a good friend. Because after all, the conversation started off with Shane talking about his wife and whatnot, and her always leaving the lights on. This funny little story. And in the beginning, you know, Shane comes off as a really good person. You know, him and Rick just shooting the breeze, well, not back and forth as me until they get them their call. Some people say Shane just ended up being so crazy over Lori. That's where the problem was. There was maybe something inside somewhere in Shane that people just didn't know about that caused later on problems. Maybe also was some of that. There's many ways we can look at this. Do I think there could have been a potential way if certain things had done differently? Shane and Rick would have been like that to the end? Possibly, yes. But at the same time, I don't know. But then again, if you look at the Daryl we ended up with, the Daryl we got in the beginning, the difference is of people dealing with their own stress, their own personal demons, their own problems. And the difference is in character development for the good or the worse is so much dramatically different in some ways when you look at the friendship that ended up between Daryl and Rick and Shane. But there are some stuff, and I don't know if Shane was in the military for his police officer, or he really obsessed over that, or just that's kind of his mindset being a police officer. But Shane, the idea of some of his tag or some of the stuff, the way he wanted to approach stuff, just for looking at the whatever picture, just to ensure the survival of whatever, no matter what the cost. Just looking at all about the emotions of it. Tactical wise, it almost sounds maybe like military strategy wise or whatever, and may sound good if not actually revealed the whole curtain and seen the mass of blood shed needed to achieve that. But this kind of reminds me a little bit in a slight way. What was it? I don't remember which movie it was. I think it was Civil War. Was it Civil War? Captain America: Civil War. This is slight similarities. Very big difference, but very slight in different ways similarities. Okay. The thing between Captain America and Iron Man, because what was it? Bucky years ago killed Iron Man's dad and mother, whatnot, and Captain America's trying to protect them because he was under mind control. And there's all this other different stuff in general. Looking at the situation of how Captain America is viewing how the team should be ran, what the team is supposed to be. And, somebody, all the personality characters that make Captain America, you got all the personality aspects that make Iron Man. The difference is of their own past traumas, demons, whatever, and how they're developing, dealing it, and whatever else. And, Iron Man coming to the realization that they may be this supposed, looked upon great, super elite team, but at the same time, people still die when they fight the bad guys. Nothing is perfectly safe. It's not all just some fairy tale. And some of the more better Marvel movies, I don't want to be one of them people to be like, oh my gosh, I don't like Marvel because Marvel's not dark. DC is so much. So go read some freaking Edgar Allan Poe and shut up, okay? Just saying. Dang, if you want dark, go do that. So, same thing. We have two people that have, it was as tight a friendship as Shane was, or no, some sort of friendship with their own differences, that later on, those inner differences and how the situation at hand weighed on them, impacted them and caused them to make their own decisions in which they both thought they were right in their own way. But one was literally straight up truly trying to defeat the other because he thought it was the, sure enough, had to be purpose he had to fulfill because of the situation at hand. Also mixed in with the emotions that he allowed to get to him as well. While the other one, yes, trying to fight, but also not trying to actually completely destroy the other person. Or injure the other person too bad without having them injure him or what he's trying to protect. In that situation, you're going to be in Bucky the person. Very similar, very much in some small ways, of very big differentialities between Rick and Shane. But it still is a completely different situation with different stuff weighing on two different people. And overall, the main thing, that was the big issue, was Rick was with Lori. Lori thought Rick was dead. Shane thought Rick was dead. Okay? It shows literally where Shane actually tried, actually cared, actually came back, tried to get Rick. And that's at some time in the beginning, before later on, the end, looking back, it does kind of make you question. Now, I am not one of the people who's going to go out there and say, oh, well, Shane was just ahead of the curve, and people didn't realize it later, even though in The Walking Dead they kind of make a scene where Shane was like, okay, you got to take a page out of my book when Rick has that hallucination, which is still just hallucination, okay? And I still think there's a difference between Rick and Shane. Or Rick understanding sometimes for true survival of everybody in the right set that will die if this does not get done, just to protect everybody and help them understand. Shane wanted to do a more rougher, harder enforced, but this is the way things are. We all have to band together for the fight. We all have to do this. It's survival or death, and that's it. And if you're not on board, then so be it. Did Rick go a little bit crazy at the time and sing some of that? Yeah. But at the end of the day, Rick still had the right thinking mind and compassion to not just be someone that would immediately met with obstacle think, okay, I got to break this down instead of finding other ways to go around it, in my opinion. I got to break this down with brute force to protect everybody. Yet this is how this has to be constantly done. Sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes such actions are needed. Without thinking things properly through and just saying the idea, okay, let's go to war every time a wall is met to take down the wall, not properly thinking through things and looking at all the variables very much can lead things to being worse. Now, some people might say, well, if Rick wasn't so emotional when, some people might could say that, not saying I say, when Lori died, if he hadn't got so emotional and had just daggone sucked it up and been some sort of supposed man, I don't freaking know. He'd have been more better, more there for the people at the prison and not let them get daggone jumped by the governor's goons or whatever. And this and that. He hadn't lost his mind. He could have took better care of the people instead of just constantly. And we're not meant to be robots, people. We're not. Okay? God gave us emotions for a reason. Understand how to properly handle stuff in every aspect of life and actually process things is part of the process, part of the journey. Some people, if you was just thinking mathematical wise for the actual, make sure all just variables and numbers are in line, just for the outcome to achieve what is asked of the equation, only seeing that, no, not the process of different ways the equation can be affected, different ways it can be, with each individual variable, what actually makes the outcome, and is it necessary for the outcome to even come itself. It's other ways of looking at it without that context of emotions. So, yeah. And I honestly think, related to another show, the show Supernatural, when Crowley first came in, they left Crowley on for way too long. The shows in general, one thing I think they've done is leaving Negan on for way too long. For the time period when I stopped watching the show, when I started rewatching it, was a long time period. And by the time it actually showed the character arc of what Negan turned to later on, I was somewhat pretty much over, because I didn't have that emotion affecting me watching it of how much I hate that person. Now, Crowley was different in Supernatural. I just got bored seeing him as a character and thought there was no reason to further it more for as long as he lasted. I don't even know if it's been a while since I looked at anything of the last few episodes or seasons of it. But yeah. But when I rewatched the show and seen how terrible Negan was in the beginning, I'm like, why did I even start to care of how it felt? That brought that emotion back, everything else. And actually being met again in reality of seeing the devil for who they really were. Who knows? Maybe Negan is just playing good just to survive at this point. Maybe it's all just that. But then again, there's this interesting saying. I got this from a movie years ago. I tried to relate this saying. He said, when God made human beings, he made us a little bit beneath angels and a little bit above animals. I love that saying. I love that saying so much. But yeah, the all the characters in general, The Walking Dead, mainly focusing on Rick and Shane. Maybe he was crazy over Lori. Maybe, but there's some stuff that actually kind of makes sense. Just the unusualness in the elephant in the room. A perfect glass pitcher that's now been cracked and broken. That is just when Lori first sees that Rick is back, I think part of it, Shane wasn't happy at first. Because now this whole new established family, this whole new life he has made, he was the Rick before Rick got there. He was the original somewhat leader of that group. I think some was just he was so, couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it, as if he looked like looking at a ghost, I don't know what was going through Shane's mind in the moment. Maybe Shane thought he's seeing the ghost of Rick. He was being punished because he felt bad, still think he didn't try hard enough. Okay? And in the beginning, beside that little bit of weird look when Rick got there, even Lori told Shane, "Oh, don't talk to me anymore." So that she thought Shane lied. And imagine, Shane had done nothing wrong at that point. Shane told the truth. He thought Rick was dead. Shane also is the only person Rick remembers seeing in the last bit of conscious, somewhat whatever consciousness is, coma, visiting him and giving him flowers. You know, when Rick got shot before all this, the concern Shane had on his face and the constant hollering to get that medic. I'm telling him, it's going to be all right, buddy. I'm here with you. I'm here with you. Was that just in general, just because it's a fellow officer in blue and they're both on the force? No, they was straight up best friends. They were brothers. But all that being said, so everything up to that point, Shane really hadn't done anything wrong. Shane felt upset. Shane felt a little bit mad. That, probably hurt Lori telling him that. There was the scene where, what was it? How come I've done rewatched the beginning of this and I've already forgot Carol's original husband's name? Was he so much of a douchebag, my brain just don't care to remember? Did he go kind of a little bit overboard for a moment there? But no, Shane didn't want to see him hurting women. So what did Shane do? Shane, pieced the dude up a little bit. Well, more probably a little bit. But anyway, any other time anybody had conflict in the camp, did he immediately go into this aggressive, "Oh, well, you ain't going to do this in my camp" type person? Or try to actually just use a mixture of emotional, well thought out stuff to just restrain people without hurting them and let them know it was going to be okay and just calm down. We'll figure this out. Does it seem odd that Rick first gets to see his family and his first thing is to run off, help some person? Yeah. It is a little bit odd. But he felt bad about Merle, okay? If Shane hadn't been in that camp with just a bunch of random people, though, would Rick have left it all? Probably not. I think he could tell decent enough it seemed like a stable camp, and other than that, Rick knows Shane's there to take care of people and his family. Somebody he actually trusts, somebody he knows is a hardcore dude that he's been with on the force. Do I still think that makes it 100% perfectly right? Not exactly. Did Rick give me a word back and forth? Well, if you weren't here, I wouldn't leave it all, and I trust you to watch over my family. He didn't say that exactly that I remember of. But at the same time, Rick wanted to make it right because Rick actually cared. Rick actually cares. Them kind of unintentionally making Rick somewhat of the leader, slowly more and more as Shane stops being the leader of the group. Rick saying early on when he was in that CDC thing, it seemed like I was making all the wrong decisions for my family and other people that was just following me in this group, and I was really worried about it, and I was about to give up, And later on in the series, right almost near the end, Rick tells Daryl, I didn't ask to be the leader. They kind of just made me that way, Rick was intentionally trying to call shots and tell people what to do. And neither was Shane completely in the beginning, but later that's how it happened. And I see some of Shane's points, but Shane's, I think, still had problems, maybe hidden way deep down inside of him, or something caused a problem to emerge. And do I still really see a perfect thing for Shane and Rick, daggum, that her finding out her husband's alive, her telling Shane what she not to speak to him again, Shane trying to stay away because she asked whatever, but he's still doing it out of not respect, actually got a hurt, whatnot. Rick later finding out that Lori's pregnant and Shane wasn't done it. I've not got back to the part where Rick and Shane had the talk on the road before they had that fight later on. But I see some good points, some areas of what Shane wanted to do for the group. But the inside thoughts and the emotion Shane was feeling behind that. Overall, he was trying to repress to look better, or supposedly maybe even try to act better for Rick, because he actually cares for Rick. Even though that lesson later on. But some people say, oh, everything Shane done, bad or not, in the end was for Laura. He was just crazy and loved Laura. He just wanted that family with him and Carl, because Shane had a wife that wasn't getting along with. He didn't have a family and blah, blah, blah. Even the absence of something that's supposedly maybe natural, possibly in nature, for a person to find their own and then raise their own, that still does not justify the actions of what they do. Oh, well, he didn't really ever had this, now he had this, so we feel sorry for him, and we feel kind of whatever. I don't understand that mindset. Kind of like what was that movie? Doctor Strange Multiverse or something, and a person kind of explained the whole WandaVision show. That kind of relates into that. So like, oh, well, she lost her person, never had a kid, so, we feel sorry, and her mind was messed up, and blah, blah, blah. Bunch of junk. So, yeah, but let's say when the talk Rick Shane had, they actually do truly make up. And could they really have lasted with all that junk? I don't know, man. It's not that simple to make some of the decisions that they make or had to make. Now, if you look at some, just, okay, there's apples, there's oranges. If you pick apples, you pick oranges. Life is more complicated than that, although there are some simple answers to some situations. But like I said, at the same time, I think part of the show was to show that them trying not to become inside soulless zombies, like The Walking Dead, okay? Acting just pure on natural emotions of just natural survival. What are the walkers? The walkers are emotionless, besides regular day motor functions, brain-wise, always hungry creatures. The most simplest, primal, with the exception of abstract thought, that is, beings out there now. And the consistency of just thinking and technically the walkers even beneath animals, because animals have actual more social arcs and all that, maybe some slight personality to them as well, probably feeling very, maybe not a whole ton, but very much, I believe, some form of some sort of emotions in some way. Walkers don't got that. The walkers' main thing is they're all for the walkers' own kind. Walkers don't kill walkers. It's like Rick trying to say, we only kill the dead, we don't kill the living. Unless later on, up to no choice, if given no choice. There still is a big difference between what makes Rick Rick and what made Shang Shang. And even the similarity situations, it's so complex. Some people probably might look at us and think, well, no, you're wrong. It's just simple as this, as simple as that, blah, blah, blah. Which I very much disagree. Which is, I think, why the greatness that made the show was that of the characters and seeing that. And you see it affect a lot of people. You see it affect Carol. That same similar dynamic. You see it later affect Morgan. Same similar dynamic. The mindset of this, the mindset of that. So as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you folks around.